In the most recent display of the Islamic State's terrible power, militants have reportedly burned 45 people to death in al-Baghdadi, Iraq. Global outrage over attacks like this have prompted President Obama and other Middle Eastern countries to declare war on ISIS. So how powerful is the Islamic State? First of all, if you want to know more about ISIS, check out Tara's video here. But briefly, ISIS is a militant jihadist group trying to establish their own Islamic nation in and around the borders of Iraq and Syria. It's currently battling local militias, the national armies of Iraq and Syria, as well as the US Army and its affiliates. And in many ways, ISIS is winning. ISIS recently gained ground in Iraq and Syria, and the number of ISIS supporters in the region is reportedly growing. The CIA estimates that the number of ISIS fighters to be around 20 to 30,000 men strong, but others think that's a low figure. A Kurdish government official says 200,000 is a more likely number. A UN Security Council report claims that ISIS has a stockpile of weapons and ammunition which can last 2 years. The arsenal, according to the report, includes tanks, Humvees, machine guns, and anti-aircraft artillery. ISIS also makes tens of millions of dollars per month on oil sales, kidnapping ransoms, theft, and donations, according to the US Treasury briefing. Illegal trade of antiques and mafia-like taxes on residents contribute to ISIS's wealth too. Several news agencies call ISIS the wealthiest terror group currently in operation. And perhaps more than anything else, ISIS gets its power from the specter of fear that pervades the region. The militants use their own unique brand of terror and social media platforms to their advantage. ISIS's Twitter accounts proudly update the world on every confirmed and unconfirmed act of violence. They have gone so far as to release gruesome videos depicting ISIS executions for the world to see. This media presence is used to successfully intimidate communities in the Gulf region and beyond. CNN reports that Iraqi soldiers and police have even fled their posts at the terrorist approach. ISIS is arguably the most powerful terrorist group of modern time. It is stronger and wealthier than Al-Qaeda in Iraq and the Taliban in Afghanistan. Currently, the UN and human rights groups are struggling to help innocent victims in the region, but excessive violence hinders their efforts. However, as ISIS gains momentum in their attacks against the West and neighboring Muslim nations, governments can no longer turn their back on the terrorist threat. Jordan and Egypt have recently joined the US, Libya, Iraq, Syria, and others in the fight against the Islamic State. Check out our playlist to learn more about the global fight against ISIS, including this video on whether Jordan can actually beat them.
The Jordanian military has announced that it will deploy special ground forces to ISIS strongholds in Syria and Iraq. This has been received as positive news by the US, which has so far been responsible for approximately 80% of airstrikes against ISIS.
And subscribe for new test tube videos every day of the week. Thanks for watching.
August is traditionally a quiet month in the French capital. It's the time when many Parisians leave the city for their annual vacation. But this year, it feels even quieter than normal, and that's because many nervous tourists appear to be steering clear. Last year, nearly 85 million foreign visitors came to France, making it the world's top tourist destination. But following a string of deadly terror attacks, France may struggle to cling on to that top spot. In the week following last month's terrorist massacre in the south of France, the number of flights booked to Nice plummeted by more than half. And things are not looking too rosy for the rest of the summer, with international flights to France down by 20% in August and September. The hotel industry has also taken a big hit. In the first half of this year, the number of overnight stays in hotels by foreign visitors was down by 10%. And even the magic of Disney hasn't escaped the downturn, with Disneyland Paris reporting an 11% drop in visitors between April and June this year. Camouflage soldiers armed with assault rifles are highly visible around tourist sites. There are 10,000 troops deployed across the country. They're meant to reassure the tourists, but they are also a reminder of how real the terror threat is. And it's not just France that's suffering. Hotel chains, airlines and tour operators have also reported a downturn in business in Germany and Belgium following terror attacks there. Tourism is a vital industry for France, accounting for 7% of GDP, and so the government is very keen to lure people back. It's launched a new advertising campaign depicting picnics in the park and other summery scenes. The message very much, even in a state of emergency, life here does go on. But the terror attacks are on the rise, and the shocking images on the news are still very fresh in people's minds, and so it may take more than a few glossy photos before the tourists are flocking back to France. Kate Parkinson, CCTV, Paris.
In November 2015, ISIS staged a coordinated terror attack in Paris, killing 130 people and injuring more than 350. That month, media coverage of ISIS was at an all-time high. But over the last 2 years, in spite of the group continuously taking credit for terror attacks around the world, they've garnered less and less media attention. So what exactly happened to ISIS, and why don't we hear about them as much as we used to? Well, first and foremost, ISIS is losing, both regionally and globally. At its peak in late 2015, it held control of major portions of western Iraq and eastern Syria, covering as many as 8 million people. At the time, accounts of their implementation of strict Islamic law made it appear that they had successfully established control over their territory. Reports stated that through stolen oil, archaeological artifacts, human trafficking, and kidnapping ransoms, their income was estimated at over $1 billion a year. But in the aftermath of the Paris terror attacks, US, French, and Russian-led forces stepped up their offensive against the terror group. Coalition airstrikes have decimated their military capabilities. Additionally, Iraqi troops have been successfully taking back captured territory alongside Kurdish and Western allied forces. One major turning point in the fight against ISIS was in the Iraqi city of Mosul. After being overrun in mid-2014, Mosul became the de facto ISIS capital and a symbol of the group's military prowess. But after a 3-year counteroffensive by the Iraqi military, ISIS forces were driven out in the Battle for Mosul, with one Iraqi military commander pegging the death toll for ISIS at roughly 25,000 fighters. This major victory by coalition forces has had far-reaching repercussions and is seen as a death blow to the terror group. In the last 2 years, ISIS has seen its land holdings collapse, with security analysts estimating a 60% drop in territory since January 2015. Besides losing oil-rich Mosul, the group has also lost territory in their Syrian strongholds of Raqqa and Homs. All 3 cities once contributed heavily to their stolen oil revenue, which has dropped by nearly 90%. This massive loss in resources has demoralized the group's members. Huge numbers of foreign fighters are now fleeing into Turkey to escape the brutal regime. In addition to losing the global and domestic fight for dominance, media coverage of the group has dwindled, somewhat intentionally. ISIS has used mass media as a propaganda tool to spread their message and recruit, which is why a large number of outlets have stopped publishing the group's stylized videos. In recent years, newspapers in countries like France have even stopped using images of ISIS terrorists following attacks, and they've refused to say their names on the radio. After losing territory, financial stability, population, and military ability, as well as a concentrated effort by the media to cover victims of the terror attacks rather than the attackers themselves, ISIS has become less of a focal point and more of a symbol of defeat in a larger global fight against terrorism. But on a global scale, ISIS is not the only terrorist group causing both loss of life and a threat to global stability. To learn about another group that rivals ISIS in death count, watch this video. Thanks for checking out Now This World. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this every week.